You know, in my country, I'm known as a senior citizen.
You get free buses and trains.
Exactly, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
We don't get free trains. We get, you can pay for a pass and you get 1/3 off, but you get free buses.
In Ireland you get free trains.
Well, once we become independent.
We make all better.
Hey, tomorrow I'm going to Saarland. What do I need to know?
Don't start. Just take an extra bottle of whiskey with you.
I used to go there a lot, but I haven't been for a few years, so it's going to be a new experience, well, a repeated experience. So I'm aware that this is the first Scotch whisky tonight, the Edredauer, and it's really nice, it's great, but I'm also aware that we have German whisky and Irish whisky, and so I'm going to sing my World of Whisky song.
Yeah.
I was asked by Whisky Magazine to write an anthem for them, you know, and I said, well, I don't do anthems. You should get U2 or, you know, Bruce Springsteen or somebody. They said, no, we want you. Do a song for us. And I said, okay, tell me what's your mission statement. He said, celebrating the whiskies of the world. And I said, all the whiskies of the world? Yep. Well, I had to think about it a while, but this was before they built a distillery in England. So I was okay. I said, that's okay, I'll do it. Because then, shortly after they did build a distillery in England, the first one was in Norfolk, and it was called St. George's Distillery. And they got Ian Henderson, who was the master distiller at Laphroaig, and then later at Edredauer. They got Ian Henderson to come and show them how to make whiskey. And he was there, supposed to be there for a year, but I think after 10 months they said, okay, we know everything now, fuck off. And they told him to go. And I felt really sorry for Ian Henderson because they kicked him out of Norfolk, and when he came back to Scotland they stopped him at the border and said, no, you're not coming back, you're a traitor. You taught the English how to make whiskey. You know, the English have been trying to conquer us for centuries in order to learn how to make whiskey, because a long time ago, you know, they lost the second part of the recipe. That's why they can only make beer. Anyway, I went to visit Ian Henderson down in Norfolk in the last few weeks of his time there, and he gave me a bottle of new make, because it was a very new distillery. A bottle of new make. He said, put that, hide it in your pocket, because I'm not supposed to give anything. You know, the English say that the Scots are mean. This is projection. This is denial and projection. They don't realise how mean they are, so they like to blame it on somebody else. The Scots are not mean. Of course not. My uncle tells a story of the time he went to London, and he was in the bar in the hotel in London, and he asked for a whiskey, and they gave him a whiskey, and he looked at it, and he looked at it for quite a long time, and not with a happy face, you know. And then he called the barman over. He said, excuse me, there's a fly in my whiskey. Actually, I got a fly in number 6 here, but that's okay. The barman said, I'm very sorry, I'll get a spoon and remove the fly. He said, I don't mind the fly, what I mind is its feet are touching the bottom. English measures, yeah. The first time I sang this song was at Whiskey Live in Tokyo, and I managed to get 130 Japanese whiskey lovers to join in the chorus, so I hope we can do something like that just now.
Sure.
Incidentally, not many people know this, but the Japanese whiskey industry was inspired by Scotland, because in 1918 they sent Masataka Taketsuru to Scotland to steal the secrets of whisky making. But of course, the Scots being so generous, he didn't have to steal it. We gave it to him. We showed him. We took him. He went to Longmorn Distillery, and one in Campbelltown. I can't remember which one it was. Anyway, he spent a long number of months living in Scotland, studying in Glasgow, going to the distilleries and learning how to make it. And then he married a Scottish woman. This is the key. Because no matter how carefully he studied, over a year or so in Scotland, he needed a Scottish wife. So when he went back to Japan, she could say to him, "That's not the way to do it." "That's not the way to do it." That's what my wife says all the time. Even in bed. "That's not the way to do it." And a few weeks ago, I was invited to a big civic dinner reception whiskey tasting event in Kirkintilloch. Kirkintilloch is a small town on the edge of Glasgow. And actually it's famous because for 50 years it had no alcohol. In Scotland we had prohibition, but it was very clever prohibition because it wasn't national like in America, it was regional. So each region had a referendum, dirty word these days. Each region had a referendum and decided would they be alcohol free or not. And a small number of places did, like Wick and Stromness in Orkney and Kirkintilloch. And these places stayed alcohol free for 25 years after the First World War. 25 years. In Kirkintilloch, it was 50 years. Unbelievable. There's a traditional song called in Kirkintilloch, "There's nae pubs." But the woman that Masataka married, she was called Rita Cowan, she was from Kirkintilloch. And so to celebrate 100 years since she married this Japanese guy who went back to Japan and built the first real distillery in Yoichi, in the North Island, in a place that was most like Scotland in Japan. And he founded Nika, the big whiskey company. So he was a very important guy, and he married a very attractive Scottish woman. And so I was at the dinner. They celebrate anything they can in Kirkintilloch. Anyway, you got to be like the Japanese and sing the chorus, okay? From the lowlands to the highlands, from Japan to the Hebrides, from Orkney to Kentucky and the far Antipodes, from Tennessee to Canada and Ireland's emerald land. There's a world of whiskey out there, so let's have another dram. There's a world of whiskey out there, let's have another dram. I'll tell you the truth, the only bit that the Japanese could sing was "Let's have another dram." Here's to the corn and the maize, oh the barley and the rye. Here's to the good old angels floating up on high. Here's to the worms and the washbacks, stillhouse and the vats, and the wood so tight, a lovely sight, hoggies and big butts. It's better for you than red wine, less calories than beer. You can drink it any time of day, any time of year. You can pour it on your porridge or dab it behind your ears. In the hallowed halls of alcohol, whiskey has no peer. From the lowlands to the highlands, from Japan to the Hebrides, from Orkney to Kentucky and the far Antipodes, from Tennessee to Canada and Ireland's emerald land. There's a world of whiskey out there, oh let's have another dram. There's a world of whiskey out there, let's have another dram. Here's to the guys who drink the stuff, a little or a lot. And here's to the guys who sell it to them, what a difficult job they've got. And here's to the whiskey blenders, may their noses be insured. Oh, but the guys who make it, you can take it. The keys to heaven are yours. From the lowlands to the highlands, from Japan to the Hebrides, from Orkney to Kentucky and the far Antipodes, from Tennessee to Canada and Ireland's emerald land. There's a world of whiskey out there, oh, let's have another dram. There's a world of whiskey out there, let's have another dram. Whiskey for the heart, whiskey for the soul. Whiskey stands for friendship and stories to be told. And all around the world, whenever whiskey's poured, oh, the hatred of the past will end at last and peace can be restored. From the lowlands to the highlands, from Japan to the Hebrides, from Orkney to Kentucky and the far Antipodes, from Tennessee to Canada and Ireland's emerald land. There's a world of whiskey out there, oh, let's have another dram. There's a world of whiskey out there, even in Deutschland. There's a world of whiskey out there, let's have another dram.